Welcome to Vinyl Dens on channel 33 RPM. This is the segment where we check out cool music rooms submitted by viewers from around the world. All right, this first one comes from Walker, and Walker writes, "Hi, my name is Walker. I'm 33 years old. I love movies and music dearly and have been a collector since the childhood days." This is cool. Walker is another basement dweller like myself. All the fun stuff in the basement. I dig it, man. Walker says, "I live in Colorado Springs, Colorado, USA, but because my wife is affiliated with the military, we are moving constantly. We have not lived in one place for longer than 3 years in the 15 years we have been together." Man, that is a lot of moving around. He says, "As such, any setup I have must be quick to put up and tear down and generally be non-damaging to the house. This is the first house we have had together with a finished basement. I think my setup here is my favorite." He says, "Although there are many improvements I would like to make," he's referring to his audio system, "we have lived with what we currently have for years and are very happy with the sound. Other areas in the basement include the audio-visual / game room and the library. These are not private rooms for my wife and I. He has a 10 and 11-year-old kids who also use these spaces. We are not rich by any stretch. Anything nice we have is the result of limited funds elsewhere." It is totally worth it. It is, man. This is a cool space, and that wall of movies is insane. I have no doubt that moving all of those movies and all that gear every few years would be a pain, but well worth it. Okay, this next one comes from Simone, and I love that I'm getting more submissions from women with music rooms. There's another one coming up later in this segment, which is awesome. Simone writes, "Hi Frank, my name is Simone. I'm 50, a fellow Gen Xer, and live in St. Petersburg, Florida, USA. She says, I've been collecting records for over 30 years and currently have around 1,500 LPs, 600 CDs, and cassettes and 8-tracks as well. She says, I collect music-inspired art and books along with artistic album covers, like my collection of Clockwork Orange pressings displayed above the threshold. And I like this place too, man. It's clean, it's cool, it's uncluttered, and chill. I dig it." She says, "My music room is a cozy little nook just off the entrance hallway, which also serves as my library. It's my go-to spot to unwind after work or to enjoy a coffee in the morning. When my friends come over for cocktails, we inevitably end up there." She says, "Many of my records aren't visible in the photos. They're temporarily boxed up in a closet and in my cleaning area. I'm in the process of logging and cleaning my entire collection and reorganizing by genre, so things are a bit spread out right now. Not sure if I'm going to regret that project." Man, it is, I'm sure, a big job, but totally worth it in the end. She also says she's dedicated a corner of her home office for cleaning and cataloging new records, usually while watching YouTube, especially channel 33 RPM. Awesome. Thank you very much, Simone. And she says she has a Humming Guru ultrasonic record cleaner for cleaning records and loves it. She says, "I do not have high-end gear or a killer room, but I do have a long-time passion, and some may say obsession, for the hobby. My music nook is truly my happy place and my favorite room in my home." This is awesome, and that's exactly what a music room should be, a happy place, a sanctuary from the world, and this place, I can tell, is totally a sanctuary from the world. So Simone, thank you very much for sending this over. I love it. This comes from Cole, and Cole's 15 years old, so it's very cool that I'm also getting more submissions from teenagers, because the future of this whole hobby or passion is in the hands of the next generation. Cole writes, "Hi, my name is Cole. I'm 15 years old, and I am a vintage vinyl collector and an enthusiast of all things music." He says he lives in Orange County, California, where he spends his free time skateboarding and, most importantly, spinning vinyl. Cole writes, "I started collecting vinyl last year after seeing one of my neighbor's setups. I've been saving for around 7 months now, working jobs for my friends and neighbors to save money. With some vintage donations from my grandparents, I've amassed over 25 records already." Congrats, Cole. That's great. He says, "I'm currently rocking a Fluence RT82, great turntable, as well as a Fosse audio preamp and PreSonus Erie 3.5 powered studio monitors. Okay, those are speakers. I wasn't familiar with that brand. Cole says, I discovered your channel during my hunt for starter gear, and I'm so glad I did. Awesome, man. Cole, thank you for watching the channel, and you're off to a great start and really good future collecting records. Cheers. This comes from James. James is another basement dweller, a cellar dweller. All right, let's dig into this. James is from Kentucky, and he says, I'm 48 years old and a lifelong music fan. As with many of your viewers, I have my listening room set up in my basement. I have 800 or so records and a small stash of CDs, a variety of rock, jazz, folk, country, bluegrass, and classical. His setup includes 2 turntables, a Technics, and a Sansui. He also has a couple Technics or Technics CD players and several receivers that he likes to swap out and play around with. He says his room is 13 by 28 feet, so he has room for his collection to grow. It's quite large. I like it. Music on one end, and he's got a projector and seating space on the other. He says, I also have a small bar in the room that I made out of pallets, and the collage of pictures I include is the bar top that I made. That looks cool, man. He says the open slots on the pallets are good for displaying used bottles. I didn't even notice those used bottles at first. This is a fantastic bar. And made out of pallets. It's made on a budget as well, but it looks fantastic. Really good job there. He says, I use the wall space to display concert posters, RSD posters, and specialized bags from my favorite record store. Finally, I have a row jukebox that I like to crank up when I am home alone. Awesome space. Would you like to see your music room featured on a future episode of Vinyl Dance? Check out the description below this video. Everything you need to know about submitting your space can be found there. Now, back to the show. This comes from Kane. Kane is 23 and he lives in Wollongong. Pardon me if I pronounced that wrong. Wollongong, Australia, which is south of Sydney. Kane writes, I've been collecting records since 2017 when I bought my first album from my favorite band, Quinn. And that album was A Night at the Opera, and he says he's been hooked ever since. Kane says, I'm a rock folk musician and my listening area is part of my home music studio in my garage. He says, I'm in love with everything 60s, 70s, and over the last year have been putting together vintage and vintage style furniture to create the ultimate 70s time warp den. Man, that's cool. Kane definitely has that classy retro vibe going on here, and his space seems to be decent size as well. I like the look and feel of this entire thing. Kane writes, my collection consists of rock, folk, blues, funk, jazz, and also a bunch of musical theater. He says his setup includes an Audio-Technica LP3 turntable, a Pioneer receiver, and vintage 1970s Radio Shack Nova 8 speakers, which he got free on Facebook Marketplace. Free is always great, man. Great space. I dig it. This comes from Sanjet. He says, I'm Sanjet from Steamwood, Illinois, and have been collecting vinyl for around 10 years off and on. Currently, I have 460 records and a digital jukebox in my converted dining room. He's got an Onkyo receiver, a Project Debut carbon turntable. I have one of those as well. Project DCs are awesome, man. And he's got a blue Ortophone stylus on there with Klipsch speakers. This is my happy space where I can just listen to music and forget the world for a little bit. This is something I hear from a lot of people, right? That their music room is their happy place, their escape. I heard that from Simone earlier in this video. And I think that's a sentiment that a lot of us share. Very cool, man. Okay, this comes from Quinn. Quinn is a longtime viewer of this channel, so it's finally cool to see her space. Quinn writes, hi, I'm Quinn Teal, a 41-year-old collector and artist from Indiana, USA. She says her vinyl den is her bedroom, but over time it's become much more a hybrid listening space, creative zone, and a record sanctuary. Again, going back to that theme of a music space being a sanctuary, a happy place, and an escape. It's a common theme we see in a lot of these rooms. Quinn says the collection itself has evolved through purges, rediscoveries, and reorganization. Her gear includes a Project Debut carbon turntable, the red Ortophone carts, and she says everything is set up neatly on top of a pair of wooden crates that I made. Well, technically me and my dad made from scrap wood. They are built to hold my 45s, but I ended up putting my whole setup on them because honestly, it just looked good. Yeah, it does look good. She says one wall of her room is covered in artwork. And what else does she say? She says right next to that is another wall completely covered in posters, like a teenager's bedroom, except it belongs to a 41-year-old girl who still finds joy in surrounding herself with the things she loves. And Quinn says, thanks again for doing what you do. Your channel has meant a lot to me over the years, and I'd be truly honored to be featured. Quinn, I'm truly honored that you said that, and I'm happy to feature your awesome space. Okay, this comes from Tanner. Tanner says, hi, my name is Tanner Teagarden. I live in Glenwood, Iowa, USA, and I am 26 years old. Hello, Tanner. He writes, my fiance and I started collecting records during COVID. Again, I hear this from a lot of people who got into this during COVID when the lockdown stuff was happening. Tanner says, what started as a small hobby with a Crossley suitcase player and a handful of records has ballooned into a lifestyle. All right, this is why I tend to defend Crossleys and all-in-one turntables or record players, because they often serve as a gateway into this hobby, into this passion that we all share. Tanner writes, we currently have an Audio-Technica LP30 turntable hooked into a Sony STR 6050 from 1969. And that receiver or amp is connected to a pair of vintage realistic speakers. This is definitely not my final setup, he says, but for now, I love it. Tanner also says his record shelves are from Walmart. They're Better Homes and Gardens brand, and he says they are an absolute bargain. I've never touched one of those shelving units in my life, I don't think, but I have heard good things. They're obviously a bit of an IKEA knockoff, but if they're a bit cheaper and work well, what the heck? I like them. I like the look of them anyway. Tanner says a few other things I'm really passionate about are movies and Lego, so I have also included some related photos of those. Tanner says, I always love watching these videos and hope to be included in a Vinyl Den episode sometime. Here you go, man. Cheers. Dear 33ers, remember to subscribe and hit the notification bell. A thumbs up also helps this channel continue to grow.